you are ready, CJ.
I'm ready.
Good evening. This is the work session for Northfield City Council, February 2nd of 2021. This meeting was properly advertised in accordance with Public Law 1975, Chapter 231, in the Press of Atlantic City on January 9th of 2021. I apologize. Due to social distancing requirements related to COVID-19, there are limited seats for in-person attendance by members of the public this evening. For this reason, the meeting is also being presented simultaneously as a remote public meeting live streamed using Zoom conferencing service and in accordance with the governor's executive orders and the Open Public Meetings Act. Zoom meeting participants can dial in by telephone and listen to the proceedings, or they can access the meeting using a web browser and be able to view and listen. Instructions on how members of the public could reserve one of the limited seats, as well as how they can access Zoom, have been made available on the municipal website and were published in the Press of Atlantic City. The full text of the meeting notice has been posted at the entrance to the municipal building and includes Zoom instructions, information on where to find the meeting agenda and relevant documents, as well as instructions on how members of the public could submit comments in advance of tonight's meeting. For those participating via Zoom, all participants will be muted upon entry to the meeting. Web browser participants will not be able to share their screens or see the camera view of anyone other than the host, which is the city of Northfield. Zoom participants wishing to exercise their right to participate during the public comment portion of the meeting should wait until the specific announcement is made to open the public comment period. At this time, one by one, any telephone users will be asked to identify themselves and will be unmuted to permit commentary. For web browser participants, comments or questions may be submitted via the chat function, but will not be acknowledged outside of the designated public comment portion of the meeting. Chat users must also provide his or her name and address for the record in order to be heard. Any written comments submitted in advance will be read aloud and addressed during the public comment portion of the meeting, and we had none submitted for this evening's meeting. May I have a flag salute led by Council President Pro Tem DeWeese, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call. Mr. DeWeese?
Here.
Mrs. Madden? Here. Mr. Notaro?
Here.
Mr. Perry?
Here.
Mr. Smith?
Here.
Mr. Utz?
Here.
Mr. Palestina?
Here.
Mayor Chow is participating via Zoom, as is Chief of Police Paul Newman. And Mr. President.
Thank you. Committee reports, Councilman Perry.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today, myself and Councilman DeWeese met with the Public Works Supervisor on some issues, some pertaining to the flows and other system infrastructure concerns and equipment. And some of that will be bringing forward in the work session to come and make some recommendations to the council and do things today. Seniors, nothing at this point in time. The engineering, do have one complaint on the 501 Maple and talking
Thank you. Councilman Arts.
I have nothing to report this time.
Thank you. Councilman Notaro.
Thank you, Mr. President. I spoke with, on the weekend, Captain Ben Nixon and Deputy Chief Scott Goodman, and raised the meeting for next week. Barbara and I are going to meet with them and go over just some details of their organization here. Just get to know each other a little bit. I attended a fan meeting, again, just like all the other groups in town. They're looking for volunteers. It's a big issue. I know we have it in our clubs. It's tough to find people to step up and do things. So, hopefully, we can get some more volunteers. They also have some projects they'd like to do down the road. We'll be discussing it later on down the road. Cultural committee, I spoke with Lloyd Clark, and he's looking to maybe start getting some meetings together next month, and maybe hopefully this year we can do the 4th of July organize that.
That'd be wonderful.
As far as veterans, this kind of goes to the cultural committee. We're going to get them involved with this. I spoke to a gentleman, Marco Polo. He runs a program called the Purple Heart Way, and this is, I'd like to have feedback from everybody on this as well. I'm going to come up with a resolution to designate the area of Oak Avenue between Mill and Zion as Purple Heart Way. It's a very appropriate area. It's a veterans park, and I think it's a great tribute to Purple Heart. So that's coming up as well. Maybe at the next meeting, we'll have a resolution for that. And that's all I have today.
Thank you. Councilman DeWeese.
Thanks, Council President. The replacement poles for the bike path have been delivered to the public works, so I look to have this installed hopefully by soon. And the other thing is we had a street light at the First Street playground, and that has been repaired. It's called the residents, has to be repaired, so we're happy to go. So it's all right.
Thank you. And Councilman Smith.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Little League continues their registration. They are planning to run a season this year, and I mentioned a couple weeks ago that the registration is open for Little League and for softball, for baseball and softball. That is, the registration runs until February 21st. At this point, they are not requiring people to pay at this time. People who paid last year, they still have a credit for that to play this year. So certainly they look forward to having as many children as possible sign up and register for the season this year in the hopes that we will be having one. Northfield Community School, they are back in session with the students in session. I attended the board meeting last Monday, not last night, but the previous Monday. I informed them about the CARES grant money that we received. They certainly were appreciative and grateful that we were able to recoup some of that for last year. I did let them know that we are committed to the remainder of this school year, providing the service for the crossing guards, and also let them know that as far as the next school year, that's a different story, that we would anticipate not, well, I didn't say we would not agree to the plan, but that we would have to talk about that at that time, but it wouldn't be something that we would be necessarily in favor of, if that came. But they were appreciative that the city is committed to the remainder of this school year for providing the crossing guards. And they were remote today due to the weather, and they did reach out. Superintendent Bertonis did reach out, and we were able to notify the chief that the crossing guards were not needed today. So that came in sort of late last night, around 8 o'clock last night, but they did reach out and let us know that the crossing guards were not needed, and they were all virtual today. And that's all I have for now.
Thank you. And Councilwoman Madden.
Yes, insurance and safety, let's see, nothing to report there. The meeting is going to be on February next week, February 18th or 19th. What day is it? 19th. The Mainland Regional High School, the next meeting is the 19th of also February, which is the same day as our, that's our meeting, I believe, on the 19th. When I first was, when 15th, 16th, sorry, I got my numbers back. And there's also, it's a Tuesday. When I first started as liaison with Mainland, I had mentioned to President Ozerkis about the conflict in the meetings, and her comment was, we were welcome to change our meeting if we wanted to. So there's always going to be a few meetings that I cannot attend. I will attend the one in March, and of course the April and the budget meeting in April. Library is next, the next meeting is the 11th. As far as fire report, got that here. Total fire incidents were 2, and they were two building fires. The total rescue incidents, this excludes EMS first responder incidents. There was 1 assisted EMS. Total hazardous condition 3, weren't fire. There was 1 gas leak, 1 vehicle accident, and 1 power line down. Total service call incidents were 1. It was a cover assignment. Total good intent call incidents were 3. 1 smoke scare, 1 good intent, and 1 hazardous release investigation. Total false alarm, false call incidents were 8. Total EMS first responder incidents includes all EMS first responder incidents with 0. Total dispatch incidents were 18. Mutual aid was 3, and all 3 were to Pleasantville. And total non-incident activities, there were 5, and 4 included training for firefighter Welsh EMT training, and that was the total man hours for training was 4. And that's the stats. I do have something to report. I spoke with Captain Nixon a couple days ago about the vaccine status, and he gave me some information. The vaccinations are in progress. Firefighters can receive vaccines at various locations. He had mentioned Atlantic Care Mainland Division in Pomona, Atlantic County Community College, and Shore Physicians Group was among some of them. The vaccine is available to any firefighter interested in receiving it. The majority of the firefighters are getting the vaccine, and many have also received their 2nd dose by now. And did I forget anything? That's it.
Thank you.
Oh, one other thing I want to say, Mr. Notaro, your idea for the Purple Heart Way, I think is great. I don't know if you know, but my husband and my father and almost all my uncles were veterans, and most of them combat veterans. And my Uncle Pete was wounded. He was a Purple Heart recipient. He had a very serious hand injury and lost several fingers. So I think that's a wonderful honor to them. So thank you.
Yeah, I thought so too. It's a great tribute.
Yes. And that's it.
Uh,
For now.
We have not met with, I have nothing on the municipal alliance on the finance and the collections. Well, we'll have some final numbers for this year. Obviously, that'll come out as we have our budget meetings starting this Thursday. Our first one will be that Thursday, and then subsequent throughout February. So we'll have more there to go over with from the finance side. And that's all I have from my committee report.
Mr. President.
Yes, sir. The bucket truck?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the aerial truck is just the bucket truck,
Goes up and down.
Okay, moving on to the work session. Let's see, the old business, Zion Road Pump Station easement.
Thank you, Council President. I had I had a meeting with the county engineer last week to discuss with him the procedure, how to finalize this issue for our pump station. I sat down with him. I thought he was in agreement with having the property in the right of way and get the right of way dedicated from the owner. Then he turned around. He says, but legal was having an issue with it. I said, what kind of an issue? He says, back in the 60s, when the state law says they're allowed to have water line, water mains, sewer mains, force mains in the ground, they never said in the right of way, county right of ways, was never specified pump stations. So according to him, legal was having an issue having the pump station with the generator and the equipment in their right of way. So we discussed it, said maybe we can just you revert that right of way you have, and we can probably take the property from the owner and create a single lot that will encompass our pump station, all our equipment. And then he sent me a sketch, which I emailed to you. That's what he's thinking that we can do. So we have one single taxed lot that is owned by the city, and all our equipment, pump station, generator will be on that lot itself. Then Mr. Perry just handed me a document they found at Public Works from 1976. It mentioned an easement when they built that pump station. So I need to look at that document, and it was directed to the attorney at that time to prepare easement documents, and they agreed to pay the owner at that time $750 for permanent easement for the pump station. I'm not sure if this is done because we couldn't find any records, but now I have a date, I have a name. We'll be able to research that at the county records and see if we can find any easement. So I'll report to you next meeting about our finding about this document. If it's recorded, then half of our issue is gone because we have an easement. But if it's not recorded and the agreement was done and the city never paid, I guess then we're back to square one.
Right.
So I'll report to council next meeting.
Do you know, you don't know yet then whether the old easement is large enough to encompass what the new one is?
I don't know.
You
It
just
has some
got-
dimensions. I'm gonna put it together on the map, and I will see what that lays down. So we might need more land. I'm not sure yet.
Okay,
I just got it handed to me tonight, so I didn't get a chance to look at it. It would be a minor subdivision at that point. Well, we have to bear the cost. Yes, but we as a municipality, we don't pay legal fees. We don't pay application fees. It's just minimal work for us, but we are paying the owner a sum of money to give us the property. And the same token, the county, when we do the minor subdivision, we would show the new right-of-way, and the county will have documents to revert portion of the right-of-way to the municipality. So now we have a lot that includes our pump station and all the equipment. No, it'll be township owned, municipal owned.
Rami, if you need any assistance in the morning, looking that record up online. I can
Okay.
certainly help you
Yeah, I'll
with that.
get.
Do you have that letter?
Yeah, I just got it here. So, did you get a chance to talk to?
I traded phone calls with him.
Yeah, if you can find out his position, I'd appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's a matter of if it's going to happen. I think it's just a matter of what the proper procedure is to
Okay.
accommodate everybody's concerns.
Okay.
So if we have an easement, that would be awesome, though.
Yeah, but this document talks about preparing the easements, agreement on paying for the easement, but doesn't have any easement document in it or anything
Okay.
recorded. So.
That'd be great.
Thank you.
okay, thank you. While you have the floor, would you like to cover the Ninth Street?
I sent an email to the lady from the DOT and she hasn't responded to me yet. It's about the drainage issue on Northfield and Route 9. I don't know at this point if we have to send a letter to somebody who's above her, but nobody's working. Everything is remote, so you cannot get a call from anybody. Just everything's email.
Okay. Emergency medical services, Councilman Smith and Natara.
Thank you, Mr. President. Councilman Natar and I met with Linwood yesterday to discuss the RFP. We have on the agenda this evening a rejection of the single bid that we did receive to the previous RFP. We didn't find the conditions that came in with that one submission to be agreeable to the city. So we agreed with Linwood that we would like to, and they have already rejected the bid themselves. We did meet to discuss revisions and on the Linwood end, they had proposed a number of revisions. At the meeting last night, Councilman Nataro and I went over and discussed some of them. We had some questions even up through today. Councilman Nataro and I were working on some of the revisions to clarify some things and to make some other revisions that we felt were in the interest of Northfield. And you have that in your packet this evening, I believe, the revisions. We would like to move forward with the to approve a resolution to accept the revisions and enable Linwood to submit or publicize a revised RFP for the public to submit their proposals. You should have the in your packet, you have the revised specifications that are there in the proposed resolution.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, thank you.
I have one. So the revisions will allow us to submit new or have new proposals submitted. We have the contract until the end of February, but there's a 90-day month-to-month extension that we can continue to receive the services of the current provider while we pursue a second round of proposals with this new revised RFP. Ideally, the changes that we made will encourage some other contractors to submit a bid, and that we'd have more of a range of proposals. Hopefully that would attract some more interest in our towns in providing the service for us. If anyone had any questions regarding the revisions, I know you just received it, but
Looks like insurance.
Mr. Perry, I did forward this to the risk management consultant for comment on the insurance issues. I haven't heard back as of this time.
How about the dollar amount for the charge? Would you recommend that be reduced? It seemed like it went up pretty high.
I don't believe that we can control that. They can put that in their bid, but I don't think we can mandate or request anything from them on that front.
And we would hope that that would come in lower.
Yes, that was one of the reasons we didn't.
Issue for us.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons we want to reject the bid that did come in. And hopefully that new proposals, new bids would be lower on that front as well.
So there's no industry standard out there right now. It's just you can charge whatever they want for an ambulance, right?
I mean, not that we know of. I mean,
Yeah, not that we're aware of.
there's something out there that is a standard there.
Well, I know the federal government's not gonna pay that amount by any means.
Well, we hope not to as well.
Yeah, they're only gonna pay probably $400, I assume, not $900 some.
And that's the billable amount will go out to the resident, which, you know, we're not.
Yeah, they balance billing, you know?
Yeah, it's my understanding that we can't, like, that's subject to their proposal. We can't mandate or put that in the RFP that they have a certain threshold for balance billing.
I mean, it's not to go over, but looking at it, but I hope that it brings in something better.
In the RFP, it'll request that they'll have to put in there what their balance billing procedure or amounts will be, or,
It gives a number on what they would charge. And if your insurance pays a portion of that, you know, who pays the rest. And, you know, whether or not it gets collected or not, you know, I don't know.
but
That would be part of their proposal.
part of their proposal. They have to put that in
Yes.
their proposal, so we
Their
at least
bid
know what their
package.
intentions are.
Correct. Let's see, as far as the lease agreement, the next item on old business, lease agreement at Jackson and Fay. Well, subsequent to our last meeting, they did pay the lease. So they're up to date with that, but I think we still need to, maybe we will still have to get together and meet and discuss it. I did look at the size of it. I mean, it says in all the paperwork that it's 153 feet, but it's about 90.
That was existing anyway,
It's about 90, and it looks, I don't know if,
unless they're including those handicap spots.
unless, if you go all the way to the handicap spots, then that could be 150 feet. I didn't tape it. Yes, sir.
President, the original approval from the planning board indicated that he's supposed to have 15 parking spaces. That's how they came up with the 150. But along the way, I think they just added a few parking spaces. They never complied with that approval. of the
Okay.
Planning board. So if we bring the easement less, that means we are affecting the land use approval and refuse variance to be null and void without that. So I don't think we can modify the 150 feet. That's what I think we should keep it away. That's what we agreed.
It's not delineated there. Currently.
No, just an area next to the bike path in front of the.
Yeah, I mean, the way I see it, the original Board of Adjustments final site plan in March 8th of 1990 spells out why and how they were to use the property and how they were to design it and build it. The lease agreement in 93 with the railroad and Alfred Bennington is the first agreement. We weren't the owners, the city was not the owner. And the other lease, September 30, 1999, between Bennington and McGuire, that was the second one that concurred when he sold it to him. Since then, the city's become the landlord and technically should be executing the lease agreement with our terms and conditions now, as far as I'm concerned. You know, the succession of the leases, the property, we're the landlord now, the city owns it. At the time of the planning board in Bennington and McGuire, there was no city, you know, the
Right.
city was actually not in it. And then when the railroad sold it, and then they sold it again, basically, now the 25 years has ended in 2018 and August of 18. So technically, we should just, you know, put some more caveat in there, hold harmless, you know, in the original site plan, it said that they had to maintain drainage and, you know, look at possible cost of living increases for the 25 years, but technically, the engineer's right, if we don't put the planning approval and the board approval in there, then technically, we're circumventing the legislation of the planning board. And that, in there, the language looks like there was a second or third story that was approved.
Right.
So,
Yeah, I saw that as well.
yeah,
But as it is right now, they're not, the land isn't there. I don't know if it was ever 150 feet or if, is it possible that when the bike path went in, there's a small tree there in between the handicap spots and the gravel spots. So is it possible that the installation of the bike path took some of that footage away?
I don't think it would, because the 150 feet was along Fay has nothing to do with the bike path is at least 20 feet back from Fay.
But the actual.
Well, the
drainage-
apron of the bike path spreads all the way to the,
But that's spread
Curb.
away in the right of way of the other street. So I think the 150 feet physically is there, but it's not being utilized.
okay,
The drainage is there.
yes,
Yeah, that is there.
yeah, there's a drain right beyond the spots.
But technically, we should just do the lease agreement with them and, you know, be the landlord and collect the monies and have a hold harmless. And if he wants to maintain it, that should be something that should be looked at if we want to put language in there for him that the owners, but there is a section in there that says that they could sublease to the lot, to the store next door also.
Yes,
But it's pretty cut and dry, you know, but everything's got to blend into a new lease, that's all. Referring back to the planning and zoning and then the other two leases, and this is going to be a new lease that expired in 2018. I mean, if I owned that property, I'd want it done this way.
to a new lease.
Sure, because the future sale of that property would depend on having those.
Sure, they have no spots.
Oh, yeah. That was my business, I'd want it.
And I think to that end, to the extent that they're not compliant with the requirements of the zoning board, that may be an issue. In other words, I'm not sure I can recommend you guys sign a lease if they're not in compliance with the requirements of the zoning board approval. Or maybe we do sign a lease and the zoning official does whatever he needs to do to enforce that compliance. But it seems to me there's a chicken and egg there. We're gonna have to address it one way or the other.
And we paid for 19 and 20, but not 21. Just so you know.
So I think Mr. Perry's right. I think the time to do the lease is now, and the time to make sure he's compliant is now. So I guess we can talk about the length of the lease, the rent that he has to pay over time. All of that would be subject to negotiation and, incorporation into the lease. We can do that. We just need some direction from council as to, the term and the rent and those types of items. I think we have a committee on that, right?
Yes.
So.
All
maybe
right,
we can-
so yeah, we'll convene and we'll bring to the next meeting. Okay, so new business, let's see. So one item here, standing item is grant opportunities. We talked a little bit about the sidewalks,
Yes.
Cedar Bridge.
Yeah, thank you, Council President. There's a grant that's available from the state, from like municipal aid, from the set aside. Basically, it's a federal grant that get administered by the state. It's to allow us to install bike sidewalks for areas within 2 miles from a school, because that's where the children are supposed to be walking. And we have to be compliant with all the ADA standards, so we can have that along Cedar Bridge. The issue we have is we have few properties don't have enough right-of-way in front of the properties to allow us to install the sidewalk.
Okay.
So for us to apply, we missed the application. It was, I think, November 24th of last year. So we have time for the next round, but we need to have those right-of-ways acquired or have an agreement. So when we get the grant, we're able to install the sidewalks properly. We had the same situation where we worked on Mill Road for the sidewalks.
Right.
It took us a few years to get the right of way. So I'm not sure if this is going to be the same situation or not. Maybe the residents are motivated to grant the right of way, so we are able to install a sidewalk down Cedar Bridge to the school. So that's something we need.
Is that the same, is this the same issue on both sides of the street?
It's
I know
it's
one side.
It's the side of the bank. That's
preferential.
what, actually, they would give, the grant would be for one side, which will be on the bank side, because that's where the school is. So that's where we'll install the
Okay.
sidewalk. But we need some right of ways, and we need to start discussion with the owners. If an owner says, I'm not going to give you the right of way, then it's going to be an issue,
Hmm.
because we can't get the grant. to install the sidewalk, this small section, they won't give us the grant money.
Right.
So
You thinking about making Cedar Bridge one way on that side?
I haven't even looked into that, but definitely can look at that, see what makes sense for Cedar Bridge. And I mean, it makes sense to have sidewalk along Cedar Bridge for the kids for safety.
Correct.
It's like the same thing, we worked so hard to have sidewalk along the road. I think Cedar Bridge should be next.
But you're gonna get the right of way as opposed to putting it in the existing cartway like we did on the other side of the city.
Well, some of the lots, the right of way is 33 feet in front of them, as you know, the old type right of way. So the cartway is within 2 feet of their property. So if I install the sidewalk property like 4 feet back, it'll be on a private property. So I can bring it down, bring it to council, see how we're gonna proceed with this. Just need some directions.
Do we know, Rami, do we know how many homes
I
are
think
on that?
maybe 3 or 4. I have to double check the tax maps, but I can get back to you next meeting. And we can start the discussion with the homeowners, I guess. Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah. Is it, so if you did do it one way though, would that alleviate that if we?
No, the sidewalk issue is you have an
Still the
existing
pro-
paved
still the
road.
same issue.
The paved road as it stands right now, most of the lots, the property line is 10 feet back. Some of them is only like a couple feet back from the curb line. So we have no room to install the sidewalk. The paving is within the municipal right of way. There's no issue with that. Just the sidewalk would be on private property.
Okay.
Question.
Okay, next item would
I
be,
have a question.
yes, I'm
I'm
sorry.
not sure if I should ask you or the, Rami, would it be feasible, for, like you had mentioned, that the owners might be okay with, releasing this land to put the sidewalks in for the children? Would it be of any benefit if the mayor reached out in a letter to these property owners to explain the situation? Is that a
I think we
possible
need,
option?
we'll identify the properties, and I
Mhm.
think council or mayor have to send a letter explaining to the homeowners that
Okay.
we are in the process trying to acquire a grant money to install sidewalk
Okay.
along Cedar Bridge, and we need you to dedicate an extra 5 feet or 6 feet
Mm-hmm.
from your property along the frontage to allow us to install the sidewalk.
Okay, make a nice letter. so-
Yeah, we did that on
don't like
the
it.
road. It took a while, but we got
Okay.
it done at the end of the day.
Okay, thank you. That's all I wanted to ask about.
Okay. Next item would be resolution for the Second Amendment. Councilman Dantara, would you like to address that?
Thank you, Mr. President. Recently, I was contacted by Sandy Hickerson. She represents the Second Amendment Sanctuary. The Second Amendment Sanctuary is an organization that is, I guess you would say, somewhat of a lobbyist, I guess, as, they lobby for, law-abiding citizens, law-abiding gun owners. And, in a sense, they're somewhat of a watchdog for us, and for the American people and for our Second Amendment rights. So, I know this came up, council before in the past. I vocally supported this resolution to be passed. We were hit with COVID, and that wasn't real important then, so. She brought it to my attention again, and I wanted to bring it to council for discussion. I'm open for discussion, and I know it's a little bit of a contentious, divisive topic, but, I feel strongly about it. It's something I think all of us should feel strongly about, and it's not just our Second Amendment, it's any kind of, rights, and you should always have people out there to, chat and reach-out, even ourselves, it's great to see people out there tonight, and, hey, if I'm doing something wrong, tell me, and there's nothing wrong with that, so, Council President, Stan and I are, working on a resolution, I don't see it in the packet tonight, here, I don't know if you have.
It's attached to the work.
Session
Oh, I
agenda?
didn't really see it.
It's in here.
Double-sided.
Your taxpayer dollars being saved.
Do you mind, your microphone's clear, could you read this for the public for us?
They should have it.
Okay.
Right, everybody knows. And for those of you in Zoom land, it is on the agenda on the website.
So, any questions, I know, Barbara, you had some.
I have a few words to say. In reading over this proposal for a resolution, the phrases that kind of jumped out on there, legislation introduced in the current session of Congress could have an effect of infringement on the rights of law-abiding citizens. And also it talks about being a slippery slope. Again, a bill containing language which could be interpreted as infringing on the rights of citizens as being a slippery slope. I think this legislation is meant to save lives. I'm sure you're aware of the numerous mass shootings that we've had in recent years. And gun ownership is protected under the Constitution. That's the Second Amendment right. But when issues come up, such as this proposed resolution, it does create a flashpoint, which can lead to the division among members of a community, our community in particular. For the city of Northfield to highlight something that, due to a lack of facing the reality of the current times by a lack of legislation, it has had a horrendous effect on the lives of so many innocent people. They have lost their lives in recent years and in countless incidents. This is just wrong on so many levels. I think Northfield, we should strive to hold Northfield in a beacon of light, not a symbol of darkness. This resolution should not be what Northfield strives to represent.
Thank you, Barbara. I agree with a lot of what you said.
Thank you.
But at the same token, I also, agree with supporting a group of people that are just out there watching. Because there's some things out, there's laws that can be passed and, if there's no one watching, it's just nice to have somebody watching and counter checking.
And what is it they'll be watching?
It's an organization. I mean, I guess they could introduce themselves and tell us what they represent.
I'd appreciate that.
It's an organization that,
Mhm.
Would watch out to see what kind of laws are being passed, and if it's something that's not right, it would challenge it. It doesn't mean it wouldn't get passed,
Mhm.
but at least we have somebody out there watching the checks and balances.
I find when I first heard this, I find the phrase Second Amendment sanctuary to be somewhat ironic, because just a few months before in Northfield, in fact, I guess it was at the time when Governor Murphy declared New Jersey as a sanctuary state for immigrants. For the city of Northfield to become a sanctuary city, that didn't go over so well. And this is about people, and now you want a sanctuary for weapons? Is that
Well,
what
it's
you're
a-
saying?
I think what this is isn't it just in support of the Second Amendment to reinforce that we,
The Second Amendment is covered by the Constitution. That's what I'm saying. I think a resolution like this is divisive. It's a flashpoint and can be divisive for our community. The Second Amendment is already, it is the part of the Constitution.
I have a
So,
more
yes.
specific question.
Mhm.
Yes.
The resolution refers to certain legislation introduced the state of New Jersey legislature and certain legislation introduced in the current session of the United States Congress that could affect and infringe on the rights of law-abiding citizens. I'd like to know what that legislation is. What legislation is currently introduced in New Jersey or in the federal government that would infringe on law-abiding citizens?
that I don't have. That I will find out.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't.
We'll have a public session.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
We can get that.
I'm not here to debate any kind of certain individual laws. I mean, we could do the research and have a debate on that at another time. But let's say there was a certain law that was something that you didn't like, or something that we didn't like. At least we're supporting a group of people that are looking to be, when we all jump on board on this, it's like, it's a bigger microphone. They have more support, they have more, people behind. I mean, the county did it, there's other towns in our county that have done it. I mean, contentious, divisive, I mean, it could be, if you want it to be. I mean, it's not, we're not changing the world here, we're just, supporting the group.
Well, it refers to specific legislation, so I'd be curious to know what that is. And also, I don't think the gun lobby is underrepresented. I just don't.
No, it is
I
not.
don't see that as on a federal or even state level, but what certain legislation is this resolution referring to? And I'll be looking forward to hearing that.
Yeah, we can hear that at
Remember
public
last
session.
time When this was introduced, you talked about responsible gun owners. Are things like, have those same responsible gun owners written their congressmen and their senators about universal background checks and closing the gun show loophole or red flag laws? I mean, these are things that responsible gun owners, because they're responsible gun owners, should be for. But I don't see them standing up necessarily for those things. So I'd be interested to know specifically what legislation it is that they're concerned about. I'm all for Second Amendment rights, and I think that it is a part of our national DNA. But I think we also have a problem in this country with guns. We have more guns than people in this country, and we have mass shootings every year. Murders are up in our cities this year more than ever, and there is a real lean towards violence, it seems, in this country. I mean, look at what happened on January 6th. Those were clearly malicious, many of them, but not well-regulated militias. So where are those well regulations that they're talking about? What I see, so that I'd be curious to hear what that specific legislation is.
Thank you, Paul.
And I do think it's good.
Thank you, Paul.
It is good. It's, I mean, this has been an ongoing thing in our country. It's not something that really pertains to what's happening in Northfield. And in light of increased gun violence, you would think that we'd be heading the other direction. Trying to see how we can protect our citizens, our children, our schools. When you look at Las Vegas, I mean, how do you keep semi-automatic weapons out of the hands of non-automatic weapons? That's what I'd be interested in hearing about. How are responsible gun owners making sure that guns stay out of the hands of non-law-abiding?
And I agree with that, and I think there should be change for that, but I think the problem is a lot of this legislation comes down the road and it doesn't affect the people that are in those situations. It affects the law-abiding citizens more so. So,
Well, the non-law abiding citizens are always the problem. Those are the murderers.
yeah, they are. And
The law abiding citizens want support. They support the Second Amendment and we want to support that. But the non-law abiding citizens don't care about the Constitution. They don't care about the Second Amendment and they don't care about the people they shoot.
So the gun law-abiding gunners should be fighting for universal background checks, making sure that the mentally ill don't get a hold of guns. Domestic violence, red flag laws, about 150 plus, mostly women, get shot every year in domestic violence situations because there's a gun in the household. A gun in the household increases the likelihood of suicide by gun. And these are real statistics that happen in households with law-abiding gun owners. So what are law-abiding gun owners doing to help unnecessary death due to the abundance of firearms in our country? I mean, Australia managed to fix their problem.
Thank you,
but
Paul.
All we're doing is looking for more ways to arm people. Now they want to bring guns into schools. I mean, it really is, it is insane. It's just, this obsession with guns. in this
Thank you,
country.
Paul. It is insane. And I would like to point out too, that most of these mass shootings were done by people who obtained their guns legally. The Las Vegas shooting, that man brought an arsenal into the hotel room. He was a law-abiding citizen until he did what he did. The children in Sandy Hook, that's the one that haunts me the most. The fellow that committed that mass killing, his mother purchased that AK, whatever, 15 legally. The first person he killed was his mother. And then he went on to Sandy Hook and killed 6- and 7-year-old children and teachers. I mean, you're right. Something has to be done. This is not an infringement on rights. It's not a slippery slope, but you brought up so many good points and it has to be addressed.
We have more gun deaths in this country per capita than any other country in the world. And we call ourselves
Yeah, New
civilized.
Zealand and
All of
Australia
this-
had one incident and that's it. It was done.
Yeah,
One.
and
If you don't mind, all of this is, it's very good point, and I agree, but, you know, at least we have people that, we have people that are willing to discuss these things,
It
and,
doesn't change anything, or-
well, it gives,
It's a feel
we're
good
giving,
issue about a
we're
not
giving,
so good issue.
Yes.
well, we're giving them a voice, a larger voice, okay, and they are, they would be out there, and they would be discussing these issues, and, quite frankly, I mean, we can discuss them all we want here, but we're not gonna change anything. But that's where, you know, this group comes in and discusses these items with, you know, the powers to be.
Well,
I
if
just
see
hope they're
the
both willing to
law-abiding
listen to both
gun owners-
sides.
If I see the law-abiding gun owners are getting petitions signed for universal background checks and for red flag laws and, you know, and for guns and closing the gun show loophole, then I would absolutely support that. I think that'd be great. I don't see that from most gun owners. Most gun owners are just the opposite. They think that we're trying to take things away from them. And I agree with you that good gun laws go bad all the time. I mean, there's always, we try to chase our tail with this issue and we end up creating more problems. So I understand the fear of responsible gun owners having their rights infringed. I get that.
Correct.
But what are they doing to fix the problems that exist with gun ownership? You know, I get that they want to protect their rights, but how are they doing that by closing some of these loopholes that allow bad players to get hold of guns? In a country with, again, more guns per capita than any other country.
It's a bigger issue than us, and you're right, and you have to come to some compromise.
But that doesn't mean this is necessary or should be in this town. What Paul and I think are
That's why
saying.
That's why we're as good law-abiding gun citizens working towards good, you know,
And that's
Yes.
why,
ownership.
that's why it's not on the agenda, and that's why we're discussing it in work session.
All right.
Sounds good. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you. Well, we won't know it until we discuss it. We'll move on for now to the next topic is the Cross River Fiber request for municipal consent. I don't know where we are on that.
Oh, there's something in it.
No representatives here.
No, you all should have the cover letter along with the sample
Yes.
resolution. It's very similar to a few years ago, if you may remember, Verizon wanted to install the small network node boxes,
Yeah,
Mr.
I
Perry.
remember.
There were some issues with that in terms of getting a definitive number of these devices that were going to be installed. There was concern that it should go before the planning board. That never happened. This is similar in that it is a similar type of service. This is geared towards commercial only. And they are requesting a response from the council within 60 days.
President.
Yes.
I guess, we don't have the right to charge them, and it's the same old thing, we can charge them for permits and stuff like that, but there's no as-bills that I can see in the information. I mean, if it's underground, then so be it, if it's board or something like that, I don't have a problem. Technology's gonna change, we need it, we should have got on board with the nodes, with Verizon, and everything went down, and, there is a definite need for telecommunications network in the community, there's a lot of bad spots, but like Mary said, this is strictly commercial, it's not, gonna help the residents, but it's gonna help the businesses.
Is it,
Just what I'm looking at is, where are you gonna be impacting, and it just seems like they want carte blanche again, just like the other.
right, without giving us any specifics on,
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, I know that the way the future has got to be done sooner or later, it's just like another utility coming into town, but, they all come in with this attitude, we're gonna, just do it the way we want to do it.
I
But
would
yeah,
agree with Frank, in a way that I would entertain this is if I saw some sort of a map, a plan, tell me where you're gonna go, the route you're gonna take, what's gonna be installed, how it's gonna be installed. and how that impacts our roadways, road opening permits and all that kind of stuff. So I need some sort of a plan, cover letter, and just like Frank said, it's gonna go wherever they want. That's not gonna work for me. I need to see some plan.
I think there was a picture, wasn't it, in the,
That's in we all.
Online?
No, I didn't see an as-built.
No.
Says it is in the best interest of the city. I'd be curious to know how.
Well,
I agree. Let's see your proposal. Send a representative. I mean, they're just asking us to, I've never heard of this company before. I don't know what they do.
Oh, we'll ask them for more.
or
Yeah.
conceptual plan or something. I mean, you know, the nodes were gonna be boxes on poles, and they were gonna be fairly good size. And that gave them the opportunity to put them wherever they wanted them. You know, if this is gonna be just another line on a utility pole, or, you know, the township, I see, is doing a lot of boring of fiber, so if it's that, then, you know, that's not bad, but still. Inspection fees, permit fees, they're the only things we can charge them for. We can't charge them the tax to come into town, and we can't, you know, benefit from anything other than inspections and permits, from what I understand.
I guess, so then we'll ask them for more detail.
We're having them come in at the next meeting.
yeah. that'd be a good
Either,
idea.
either in person or
Yeah,
by
Mhm.
correspondence.
I mean, I don't want to drop the ball on this one because, you know, I feel we should have moved on the last one with the nodes, and this is something that the economy just put a squash to. And it seems like a lot of the telecommunication tower companies and node companies are just waiting to see where the market goes, but yet you still get that humongous wireless bill every month, you know? But to try and get service in, you know, this northeast section of town, it's tough.
Yep,
Don't forget, they still have to cross roads, you know, county roads, state roads,
Yeah.
there's gonna be road opening permits, so there's other utility conflicts, and there's a lot that needs to be, you know, addressed here.
So if you'd like, I can reach back out to this gentleman, ask him for a graphic representation of what their plan is, where they're going to go, how they're going to be installed, et cetera. And then suggest that he attend either the February 16th or March 2nd meeting based on their timeline. Sound good?
That sounds like a
sounds
good
perfect.
idea.
Thank you. Okay, if we could all refer to the meeting agenda. Approval of the minutes, Councilman Utz, Councilman Smith. Resolutions, Councilman Notaro, Councilman Madden, Councilwoman Madden, my apologies. Ordinances, Councilman Perry, Councilman Deweese. Payment of bills, Councilman Deweese. And meeting notices, Councilman Smith.
Who's going to second payment of bills?
Would you do
The
that,
second
please?
for the payment of
Would you,
bills.
would you second payment of
I
bills?
will
please?
do it. Thank you.
Councilman Deweese.
You got me on both ordinances?
Pardon?
Both ordinances?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Meeting notices is Councilman Smith. Was I going too fast? Got a mask. My voice has been muffled for 8 months now.
Respectfully, sir, will you be adding a resolution to the agenda with regard to the EMS? You need to know that. Correct, Mr. Defendant?
I'm sorry?
We need to know if we're going to be adding the resolution to approve the revised spec for EMS and authorize the, yeah, right.
If council's prepared to do that tonight, yes.
Yes, I think we
So
need
I just
to.
need to get that on.
Yes, I think we need to. Do we need to roll call on that or?
I just straw poll to see if
Straw-
anybody objects to adding it to the agenda.
Okay. All in favor of adding EMS to the agenda?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none opposed, could you,
So that will be resolution number,
47.
oh, 47.
can we add that to the consent agenda? Okay. So that'll be, Councilman Notaro, that'll be part of the consent agenda. Add that 47,
47, 40,
37 to 47 will be the consent.
47.
For the members of the public, that will be read in full at the appropriate time by the solicitor into the record since it was not part of the regular agenda. You're welcome.
Thanks, Mary.
You said yes.
Oxygen deprivation.
She's been used as courtroom, that's the door.
Okay, at this time, we will open the public session. This meeting is now open to the public for anyone to speak on any subject. Please state your name for the record, and we ask that you observe a 5-minute limit per speaker.
Evening, Council. My
Good evening.
name is John Walsh. I live at 2000 Grove Road in Northfield. I represent the Garden State grassroots organization for the Second Amendment. I'd like to just speak, I've spoken a couple times before, and I'd just like to speak to some of the concerns that were expressed tonight. The first one that kind of struck me immediately was the lack of universal checks, background checks. There's been a system in the United States since I believe the mid-90s called the NICS check. And what a NICS check is, it's an acronym for National Instant Criminal Background Check. And I'll just walk you through the process. When you first apply for the purchase for a firearm, you have to get what's called an FFL card. So what that is you have to go to the police station of your local jurisdiction. You have to have them do a full background check. You have to be fingerprinted. You go through the national check to see if you're a convicted felon, if there's anything outstanding, warrant, anything like that. It's a background check. That's the initial one. The second one is when you actually apply to buy the firearm. When you buy that firearm, you go through the exact same thing again. You go to your local jurisdiction, they do a background check. You get the ability to go and purchase a firearm. When you go to the actual store to purchase the firearm, they do yet another one. And when you also apply for those tests, you forfeit your right to what's called a HIPAA. In other words, your HIPAA is your health information. All of your mental health records, all of your personal health records are available and open for you for the background check to determine whether or not you're safe to purchase those firearms. So that the universal check that you referred to is what's called a NICS check. In New Jersey, it's about as thorough as you're going to get. So that's sort of the first direction. The second thing that I heard was the insurrection that you would say at the Capitol. Now, that happened in January, and I believe there were 5 deaths that took place there.
6.
None of those deaths were from armed insurrectionists. It was the one firearm fatality was done by a Capitol police officer. I'd like to contrast that to what happened a couple of years ago in Virginia, where there was a political uprising similar to what we saw at the Capitol. This was the governor sort of overreaching his ability to legislate the Second Amendment. There were hundreds, if not thousands, of heavily armed people from Virginia that have different carry laws than we do here in New Jersey show up. There was not one injury. There was no fatalities. There was nothing. It was a peaceful protest. whereas all the people that were at the Capitol last month were unarmed, and there were still 5 fatalities. There is no question that there is a violence problem in America. However, I think if you were going to say that that violence problem is due to guns, I think you'd be wrong. Just last month alone, there were 4 million NICS checks done in this country. Since COVID started, there have been record numbers of NICS checks done. And I think that if you could say, well, it has something to do with more hunting or more target shooting, but I think the overwhelming majority feel of people that are applying and purchasing firearms are afraid. I think they're afraid of their government. I think they're afraid that the government is going to take away their Second Amendment rights, and they have nothing left to defend themselves. The police can't be everywhere all the time. You know, and some of the things that I heard too was about the legislation. Well, what legislation is chipping away at the Second Amendment? The book in New Jersey for gun laws is literally this thick. Some of the new gun laws that are on the books that are in the House right now is that you would have to pay a 30% taxation on firearm and a 50% taxation on ammunition. I'm not really sure how that resolves gun violence in the United States. The second one that I've seen among, I believe there's 80 some new ones. The second one that I've seen is that you would be required to get liability insurance if you ever needed your firearm to defend yourself. Well, last year, Governor Murphy outlawed that in New Jersey. So you would no longer be able to use a firearm in the state of New Jersey if that legislation passed to defend yourself. I don't really, again, understand how you could say that that's not chipping away and eroding the Second Amendment. Everyone agrees that the Second Amendment is a part of the United States Constitution, but we can't have this draconian measures taken against, you know, with this legislation that's going to really eradicate.
Sorry, we're limited in time. Could you
Sure, you.
finish up?
I hope this maybe answered some of the
Thank you.
questions that you had.
Are we allowed to ask questions?
Just another minute because he went a little bit over, but yes, go ahead, since it is important.
You had referenced that New Jersey has a book that thing, and I agree with you. New Jersey has pretty darn good gun laws, but isn't that part of the problem? There's a patchwork of gun laws nationwide, and we don't have a universal national gun legislation that allows people to go across state lines and purchase firearms. Again, New Jersey, I agree. It's well regulated, and as far as the taxing goes, the tax everything. I mean, the tax cars, that's gone up, everything. You know, that's just weird.
It's certainly possible that that could happen, and I'm sure it does happen, but you have to keep in mind that that's still a felony. Like, another example for that is when we go to the shooting ranges, we have our weapons, our firearms in the car. If we decided that we were going to cause trouble with that firearm, it's in the back of my car. So the decision is not made because of the gun. The decision is made to use the gun as a weapon. You know, all too often you hear the media, the first thing that they jump on when there is a mass shooting is the fact that, well, where do you get the gun? It's not, why is this person causing these things? Murder has always been illegal.
Yes.
You know, I understand how we get taxed on everything. It's pretty much a common practice in this country. But 50% on already very, very expensive ammunition is just outrageous. And to have a group that will stand up for that, right? I mean, that's a great thing. You know, to me, that's you don't want to pay 50% on ammunition. I'm sure you don't. I know I don't. I'm not even buying ammunition. It's too darn expensive. So you know, it's good to have something like this to, you know, at least like good law.
It's a non-binding resolution. It's meant just to keep the Second Amendment from being further attacked.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Anyone else wishing to speak?
Of course.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Adam Hood. I'm a resident of Egg Harbor Township, but I do a lot of work for, the city of Northfield and also all of Atlantic County. One of the things I want to touch on that seemed to be maybe a little bit of a recap of what Mr. Walsh had said.
Could you give
There
your,
was a few things
Mr. Hood, could you just give your address? You said EHT, but
One Robert Best Road.
thank you.
One of the things there for the background checks, I've traveled quite a lot in the last 25 years of my life, and I've gone to many different gun stores and things of that nature. And there's always been background checks like the NICS check, which is universal against all 50 states, doesn't matter where you go. We're the one of, I believe, 5 states that has or requires a firearms ID card before you can even purchase a firearm. There's, like he said, or like Mr. Walsh said, the first requirement is you go get your fingerprints done and you apply for a firearms ID card, which the initial card is $5. The permits per handgun to be able to purchase one is $2 each. You're only allowed up to 3. They're only good for 90 days, which it should be good for up to a year because obviously someone can't just purchase, it doesn't have that kind of free willing money to be able to purchase a firearm just that easy. We all have bills, mortgages, things to pay for, children, things of that nature. But the legislation portion of it, they want to raise it from being $5 per firearms ID card to $150 per firearms ID card. And they want to raise it $100 per permit. So you're already talking maybe what, $250 there roughly, then you have to go buy a firearm if you even get or even if you get approved, at that point, which you must wait at least 30 days from what the state says, but it's ending up being almost 3 months now at this point because of the influx of people that are worried about their government, taking their rights away. The, purchase of a firearm could be anywhere from a couple $100 of like maybe $200-300 to upwards of $5,000, and to tax people on top of that with, a 30 or 40% tax on the firearm itself, then the ammunition. That's like me asking you to give me half your check and then go spend it on something stupid down the road. And it's not going to help anybody but myself, or maybe I may waste it. There's no point to it. It's not going to help any kind of gun violence. Gun violence is 99% of the time done by people that are criminals that can't legally obtain a gun. They steal guns from people, or they, rob a house and somehow obtain a gun that way, or they obtain it off the black market. Trust me, I've worked on the streets of Atlantic City. I've watched it happen in front of me. Many a times in front of Stanley Homes. I was actually in between 2 guys fighting, shooting at one another. And I was there just to put their electric back on. So for the, thing of people getting guns, legally gun owners, doing this crime, it's not the legal gun owners at all. It's the people that are gang members that bust in your door and they leave people like us, the law-abiding gun owners, defenseless at this point from the laws that are, I kid you not, 28,000 laws that I know as of 2019. It changed last year and it's been going up ever since. At a certain point there of having,
I'm sorry, you need to finish up.
okay, at a certain point there of the red flag laws, the red flag laws themselves
We went over this already.
aren't actually doing anything to prevent people from, getting guns or, helping people that are law-abiding citizens or people that are victims of the crime. People are using them to just call upon people and say, oh, this person threatened me, even if they did nothing. People that are, say, domestic violence of some sort, say they had a little bit of a conversation that didn't seem like it was a great conversation. Say, oh, I hate you, I want to move out, we're divorcing. The wife or the other spouse or whoever could, call on someone or call the cops and say, oh, well, they threatened me. And then they take that person to jail without any due process. They just go ahead and lock them up just by hearsay. And that's one of the biggest problems. Is everything nowadays is by hearsay, not by actual due process and challenging, the things that the other person said.
Thank you, Thank you, Mr. Hood.
Thank you.
Thanks so
I
much.
just have one comment.
Yes.
You talk so much about money. I don't see how that's related to the Second Amendment. If you want to buy a Ferrari, you put out the money. If you want to buy a gun, then you have to pay for it. If you want a nice house, you pay for it. Another thing is most of these mass shootings were done by people who obtained their weapons legally. So it's not just criminals. We do need legislation to protect children and people that go to events and go to school. There's more to it. Legislation is to help people, not to take away Second Amendment rights.
I hate to disagree with you on that, but I saw an officer out here tonight. None of us keep an officer in our pocket at any given time. Now, some of you may or may not live in nice homes, gated communities, have, armed services in this building, for, example. Not any one of us could afford that. But there's 47 other states that allow people to conceal carry, that are law-abiding gun owners, and that the fact that, you can't have a cop everywhere that you're at or at every single sporting event, but you could have the parents who are law-abiding gun owners protecting their own children.
Are you that
which has
afraid
been a
of living,
thing.
of life? Are you that afraid of everyday life?
Well, the fact that I've been almost shot at about 4 or 5 different times, yes. I'm quite afraid the fact that my father's business has been broken into 18 times and that I've had a gun and pointed at my face before. Yes, I'm very afraid of that.
I understand.
But the things of, say, Sandy Hook, what do you know about it? The guy who did the shooting, the young boy who did the shooting, the mother had purchased the gun. It was
Legally.
in the home to protect the home. He went and took it because she didn't have it properly locked up. Now, whether that is exactly the case, or if he just, busted open the safe, who knows? We don't know that for a fact. The guy who did the Las Vegas shooting, he had a firearm, or he had an ID to be able to purchase as many guns as he wanted. He had a federal class 3 firearms license. He had, I believe it was somewhere in the range between 15 and 20 guns in that hotel room. Now, he could have done the same thing with just one, but he had multiple there for whatever reason. But the thing is that it's not that at the time of purchase that the person, is, we'll say, a
I'm sorry.
non-law abiding citizen, but
Sure.
just fooled the system.
I'm sorry.
I'm
We're
sorry.
running out of time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
But-
You're very passionate and we
Well, it's the thing
appreciate
of-
that.
I heard some things here tonight that just kind of, was
I
very
know.
disheartening. And the thing of a, gun show loophole, if there was that possibility, I would have been able to buy a gun
There is. a
many
gun.
times over for the last 10 years.
Okay,
There's no loophole in that.
Yes, there is.
thank you. I'm sorry to cut you
And-
short.
Well, it's okay.
Another time, another
There's
time.
also 20-something laws I have here tonight in front of me.
Thank
These
you.
were just as of last year, not even as of this year.
Anyone else? Your name and address, please.
Yes, sir. My name is Sandy Hickerson. I live at 210 Upland Avenue in Absecon, here in Atlantic County. I'm the Atlantic County representative for the Garden State Second Amendment Grassroots Organization. I was the one that reached out to Councilman Notaro and asked him to bring it forward again.
Yes,
So I appreciate your time tonight, listening to all of us here. A lot of emotions going on. I wrote something out to put out a couple of thoughts to y'all. We are a nonpartisan statewide nonprofit organization made up of hundreds of volunteers who want to make a difference and stand up for the Second Amendment. We are nurses, chefs, construction workers, everyday citizens who are law-abiding gun owners and are tired of the gun laws that infringe upon our rights. We do feel that our rights have been slowly chipped away over the years. And we are asking you, our elected officials, to stand up with us and help us keep our rights. We, the people, need you to make our voice heard. By the municipalities standing together in our county with our Atlantic County commissioners, we can make a difference and we can send a message to Trenton that we will not give up our constitutional rights. March 3rd, 2020, Atlantic County commissioners passed a resolution along with the 6 towns in our county, which include Egg Harbor Township, Corbin City, Weymouth, Port Republic, Malacca Township, and Absecon. Since this organization started just 14 months ago, 11 counties have passed, which are Ocean, Sussex, Cape May, Monmouth, Cumberland, Warren, Salem, Passaic, Gloucester, Burlington, and Atlantic County. Also 54 municipalities within the state. I won't read all that. This has been a great accomplishment considering that we have been in a pandemic almost the entire time. Please remember, we are on the same side. We do not want guns in the hands of people who should not own them. We want all people who own a firearm to know how to use it. Being a firearm owner is a huge responsibility. Take a safety class. Education is necessary. We need everybody safe. You need to know what you're doing. I hope you consider passing this resolution. And if we can be of any further assistance or answer any questions, I hope that we can do that. I hope we're answering some of your questions here tonight. I know can be a heated topic. I do want to address the one thing that Councilwoman Madden made mention of with the word sanctuary. I hope you do realize that we did change the name of our organization because there were so many people that were concerned about that word sanctuary. We were formerly New Jersey Second Amendment Sanctuary Resolution. We changed that to the Garden State Second Amendment Grassroots Organization because we are grassroots. This is what it's about. It's about us, we the people, bringing our problems to you so that we can say, hey, look, this is what we want. This is how we feel. This is what's going on. This isn't right. This is right. What can we do to fix it? What can we do going forward? So that's what this is about. So that word sanctuary has been removed from our name. But if you also look
That's semantics.
at the sample resolution that was written out that's in the packet, the word sanctuary is not on here. So I do appreciate you bringing that up, and I do appreciate everyone's concerns. I hope that this isn't going to be the end of the topic here. You know, everyone needs to make sure that they're happy with this decision. And again, I thank you for your time and your consideration in this matter.
Excuse me, I have just one quick
Thank you.
question. What question?
Yeah,
So your role is to lobby in Trenton against gun legislation or even in Washington? Is that what your role is? As an
Well,
organization?
not necessarily our role, but yes, there was mention of, you know, bills that are on
Yes.
Governor Murphy's desk right now.
So you would lobby against it?
Approximately 40 bills. And yes, as they come up, as some of the bills that were already mentioned here tonight, we can say, no, that infringes upon our rights. So we can come to you, we can contact our legislatures. There's a website right on the internet. All you have to do is type, I think it's NJLEG something.org. But anyway, you can search it, you can Google it. You can contact all your legislatures, not just you guys. You know, we can all go over your heads, which we have done numerous times, you know.
So your role is to lobby against gun legislation?
Yeah, you know,
Basically. Thank
we
you.
stand up
You answered my question.
yes.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming out tonight, and I want to apologize for getting your name wrong. I didn't know it had changed, so. And, you know, it is a nicer name. It's a more soothing name, to say the least. You know, just thank you for your service and what you're doing and your passion. And, you know, I think it's good that we have people like this in America that are looking out for us and looking out for everybody. And I don't think this should be, you know, a political thing or anything. I think we should all stand up for this. I mean, AppSeeking, you know, they passed it.
This
Yes.
isn't AppSeeking.
Just September 17th they passed.
Yeah, so.
Yep. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Dominic Branca. I live at 23 Evergreen Avenue in Egg Harbor Township. I'm a Northfield native, grew up here. My parents have lived here for the last 60 years. They're now part of your elderly community. I just want to bring up the fact that I was watching the news the other day. Gun ownership used to be a Republican thing and a Democrat thing. But in 2020, 60% of new gun sales are supposedly purchased by Democrats. Okay, these are folks that have opposed it before. Now they understand the need for a firearm. And I ask you to ask around your town, whether you're a Democrat, Republican, and find out how they believe and start supporting the people that have elected you into office and their beliefs, excuse me, not just your personal beliefs. I know several Democrats that are new gun owners, and I know some Democrats that have been gun owners in the past, but they just never came out and said it. So it is not a political thing. It is our American right to own a firearm. If there was an organization that came up here and asked you to support your First Amendment with a resolution, everyone here would say, well, it's in our Constitution. Yeah, we support it. And we would write it off. But because it's
Can't yell
that was subject
fire
of gun
in front of
rights,
the theater.
there seems to be a line drawn. So I ask you to forget your political parties and support the Constitution that we all took an oath to support. And I'm open to questions myself.
Can't yell fire in a crowded theater.
I'm sorry, ma'am?
You can't yell fire in a crowded theater.
No, ma'am, you
Talk about
cannot.
First Amendment rights.
No, ma'am, you cannot. You also cannot carry a firearm in a government building. Any questions?
Are you part of the same organization? Greg?
The Garden State Grassroots Organization? Yes, sir.
Does your organization also seek legislation like, I'm in a heavily regulated industry. I think we're going to apply pesticides and
Sure.
gun license. And we lobby both against what we think is unfair regulations, but we also lobby for sensible regulations, like not using pesticides in schools or protecting bees. Does your organization also work to promote legislation that does make sense?
No.
We believe in gun safety. And right now, I'm working on a little program myself to bring gun safety back in public schools. Because one of our biggest problems is a child who finds mommy or daddy's gun, finds a gun underneath the park bench.
Mhm.
What does that child do? First instinct, pick that gun up. Okay, look at it, show his friends, play with it. It's what they see on TV and video games. Myself, I grew up, like I said, in Northfield, was around firearms all my life. They were not a taboo subject, but I was taught to learn about them, respect them, and understand how they work and the consequences of what happens if you pull that trigger. And that's something that I have passion with, and it's something that I'm going to be working on and looking into now, is to bring firearm education into the public schools. Not a full, maybe a couple weeks. There's a lot of other things in the curriculum that I believe shouldn't be there, but I believe firearm safety should be there.
Are there regulations on gun locks?
On gun laws,
Locks, trigger locks.
we are responsible as responsible gun owners to secure our weapon in a safe place out of the reach of a child.
Are there laws that don't do it? They come in and find.
Yeah, the consequences are heavy. What the consequences are, I do not know, I can't answer, but I know they're heavy consequences. So even if one of my children got hold of one of my weapons and did some bodily harm to themselves or to someone else, I'm out for it. It's me.
I know that last week.
So that's part, absolutely, you need to store your weapon safe. What I'm asking you is to, not rely on your party lines, support the Constitution. It's a non-binding agreement. We're not asking you to change any laws. We talked about that, I heard a comment that this is a problem for Trenton. No, it's not. Okay, your people live here in Northfield. This is your job, and we ask you to say, hey, go to the county and say, look, people in Northfield don't want this. Then it's their job to go to the state, and therefore, so it starts here. This is not a problem for Trenton. This is not a subject for Trenton. This is a subject for us. That's where grassroots comes from.
So would you be in support of adding to the resolution, whereas we support legislation that promotes safe gun ownership?
Heck yeah, absolutely, 100% and some.
Throw it in there.
Absolutely. Any questions? Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rankin.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Salvatore Giambrone. I live at 209 Jefferson Avenue, Acorn Township. Built a home here about 10 years ago. And I don't know if anybody has children here or anything, or if you remember, I don't know if it was called the Derecho, the derecho. I don't know if you guys, the superstorm
Yes.
we had. Well, it was at that moment my wife was pregnant, and I had a daughter, and we lost power. And being a young owner of home, I had no idea how to provide for my family. I lost food, I lost time, I lost money. I realized I couldn't provide for my family. And it was at that moment where it kind of woke me up. that I have to be able to be there to provide for them. And with learning new things on how to provide for them, I learned about protecting them. Got into martial arts. Didn't go right for the gun right away, man. I went right to hand in case it ever came down to that and hoping that I never have to use it. And then along with martial arts, there comes the idea of, well, what if we start learning how to operate a firearm, how to use a tool, and how to have discipline with it. Not to flash it around, but to teach and educate. So I'm right with you, right? That it should be stiff things that we are a part of. But you asked earlier where we are, we're here. We're here because we are concerned and we are scared and we're worried because we have families that we need to protect. Now, I don't know if I'm ever gonna need this knowledge that I've gained over the years, and I haven't been shooting as long as these people. It's only been about 3-4 years for myself. But what I've done is I've indoctrinated myself to make sure that I gain that discipline to teach my children that there's nothing to be scared of with it because we understand how to operate this tool. I understand that there's something scary with it. I understand that we hear stories about things that happen and it's tragic. But I've taken all that information and I've said, do I want to run with this or do I want somebody else to protect my family? And I've said, I'll protect my family. So I'm not here to be a watchdog. Not saying that I wouldn't join that. If it came up to a tyranny of government, absolutely. And that's our constitutional right that shall not be infringed. And I'm not here to be mean. I'm not here to start an argument. It's clearly that you both feel very passionate against it. And I understand it and respect it. And I'm against it too, but evil has unbelievable tentacles. And it takes over a man or a woman. And I'm not saying that it can't leak into somebody who actually did do the right thing to get a firearm. I can apply for a firearm on a paper, online, pay it. You can do your background check, make sure I'm not a weirdo, right? Come back now, I can purchase a firearm. Not understanding muzzle discipline, not understanding pointing it at the ground, not understanding how to do a tactical reload, not understanding any of that. I go to a range and I hope somebody can teach me, or it's just suggested by the person that handed me that piece of paper saying that I'm allowed to purchase now. That doesn't make sense to me. To get a driver's license, I have to take a test, but I don't have to take a test to prove that I can operate a firearm. That's kind of weird to me. I'm not saying that I want to go that way or anything. I'm just letting you know that I'm here to protect my family. And if you were part of my family, I would do that too. And if somebody walked in this room right now, we'd want somebody to protect us. But I have to ask you, would you want to learn how to protect yourselves, or are you hoping that somebody else would do it for you? I'm executive chef for 2 restaurants. I have to do it. I cannot rely on a line cook to do what I can do. I have to either teach them or I have to recruit a stud to make sure they know how to do what I do. But again, it's going to come down to what I do. So I highly suggest everybody start thinking differently. And I know it's hard because it's a serious topic right now. We brought up a lot of emotion today. But it's a serious topic because it comes down to self-defense. It's not an offensive maneuver. It is a defensive maneuver in my mind. Right? So we have a woman that decided to start a program to bring like-minded people together, just to bring it to your attention that yes, we have a constitutional right to protect ourselves, and especially against the tyranny of a government. That's what it's for. Even if you want to say it was written during the time of a different time, right? I understand that. But you have people that are scared now. You were just dropped all the statistic by a gentleman that was in here before. I'm not here to do that to you. I'm here to you as a father, as a husband, that I will protect my family. And if you all were in my family, you would be protected too. All right? So it is a tough decision. It's a tough situation, but we're just here to be a voice. That's it. So whatever other regulations you want to create, as long as it makes sense, as long as we're able to learn how to be a self-defensive maneuver, I think we're with that. And I think we've proven that today. Right? It's not here to be an argument or to be aggressive or anything. It's a defensive posture. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cambron.
Questions?
Good evening. My name is James Cassis. I live at 6 Hollow Drive, Lake Harbor Township. I am part of the Garden State Second Amendment Grassroots Organization. This organization was started not as we talk about, do we solicit, trends about gun safety, that type of thing. Our concern was the laws that were being made by politicians who don't know the gun laws, who don't know anything about guns, and who are not
How do you know?
informed. When we talk about, were we out there soliciting and lobbying for gun safety? Well, when every town for gun safety was invited to Trenton, none of the major gun rights organizations were invited. We had the New Jersey State chapter of the NRA. We had the Coalition of Firearms Owners. What's some of the other ones, Sandy? None of them were invited. The people who actually know about guns and understand guns were invited. So when they're looking for solutions, who do you ask? You ask people who don't know anything about guns. When we talk about, Madam Adden, you talked about that all the people that did the mass shootings were legal gun owners.
I didn't say all, but
Well, you said the majority.
a large majority,
And
yes.
That's incorrect. A lot of them did get their weapons going through a check, but a lot of those people were already prohibited from owning firearms, and it was the failure of the federal government of showing that they were ineligible for firearms. So that background check that universal background check you're talking about, it was failed by the government because the government didn't provide money to make sure that a lot of the incidents, whether it was in the military or it was prior felon or domestic abuse, was not put in the system. Right? So they were already prohibited felons from obtaining those firearms. You talked about women getting shot. Not long ago, we had Carol Brown, who was shot, who was actually stabbed in her own driveway because the state failed to meet the 30-day criteria for her to get a firearms permit to prevent an abusive boyfriend. So there was a woman who was killed because of that, right? So there's, we also talked about suicides. Okay, so we know that when we talk about gun violence, we like to talk about suicides. We don't say rote violence when somebody hangs themselves, but we attribute suicide, instead of being a mental health issue, you attribute it to violence. And it's not violence, it's a mental health issue. Japan has no guns, yet their rate of suicides is much higher than us. They have no guns, yet suicide still happens. America, as far as suicides in the United States, males are much more likely to commit suicide with a firearm than females. Another surprising statistic is that police officers are at a much higher rate than the average male of committing suicide with a firearm. Yet, I'm sure proponents here would say the only ones who should have firearms are the police. If that's the case, then if you're going to hold us accountable to a certain level, then you're going to have to take away the guns from the police because they're much more likely to shoot themselves with their own firearms. As far as the red flag laws, we already have a process to adjudicate somebody mentally if they're mentally ill. But they have to go in front of a court, they have to see a physician before you can put them away. I think we have like a 72-hour watch period where they can put somebody away. If somebody's a danger with a firearm, why go through the red flag procedure when you can just adjudicate that person, get them put away for an observation period? We had a gentleman, and I think it was Chicago, someplace in Illinois, who they had a red flag law. They took away his firearm. 3 days later, he killed his mother with a samurai sword. Why didn't they lock him up? Why were they so concerned about a method of violence? Or he should have been locked up. The gun, taking away the gun, did not save that woman. He could have strangled her with electrical cord. He could have drowned her. The gun was not the issue. It was the person. Red flag law in New Jersey, there's a problem with the way they're written here. We had a gentleman, I think it was Tom's River up in Ocean County, who was having an issue with a plastic surgeon who
5
had
minutes,
bought
sir.
some surgery on, all right? And their attorney went through his Facebook page, saw that he was a gun owner, and reported him through the red flag law, and they confiscated his weapons. You know what? He got his weapons back. Why? Because nowhere did he threaten somebody with a firearm. But there was a perfect example of a red flag law that was used improperly because of the way the law is written. So we don't have a problem with red flag laws. We have a problem with the way they're written and that they're not adjudicated. If anybody has any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Casey. Thank you so much. Anyone else?
Hello. My name is Eric Leeds. I live at 802 Devon Street in Northfield. First and foremost, I am not a member of their cause, but I do support it. And the reason why I'll tell you is, looking around this room, I can tell you, none of you were where I was on June 12th, 2016. I happened to be in Orlando, Florida, as an employee of a federal law enforcement agency that was working a case there, and I was called at 2:30 in the morning to respond to the Pulse nightclub. It was the most horrific thing I've ever seen in my life. I spent several days there. I will tell you this much. I will never utter that scumbag thing that killed all those people. But he bought his weapon legally. But his name was never put in the database. That was to prohibit him from buying the weapons. His wife drove him there knowing what he was about to do. A few months later, luckily, we arrested her. When you apply, the gentleman earlier mentioned, when you apply for a firearms permit in New Jersey, you basically have to jump through loopholes. You get the permit, the mental health screening, and I know this because I just purchased another firearm. New Jersey has a law that says 30 days. From the day that you apply, they have 30 days, once your background is cleared by the state police, to issue a permit. A lot of towns are behind, and yet people still wait. The law-abiding citizens don't make a big deal about it. They understand. I can tell you from 34 years working in law enforcement, I've yet to be to any mass shooting or any crime where an individual had a gun committing a crime was an illegal owner of that firearm, unless it was, like you mentioned, a domestic situation. But I can tell you from working in Detroit, those gangbangers aren't buying those guns from the gun shop. They're not getting their criminal checks. They're not getting their fingerprints. I can take you to streets in Canton right now. $350, you can buy what's known as a Saturday night special. Legal gun owners comply. Firearm, ammunition, it's through the roof right now. There's a company selling 50 rounds of ammunition for $119. If Murphy wanted to implement his 50% tax, now I got to pay another $60 for a box of ammunition. My friend Dominic over here and I have had conversations in the past. And one of the things that we talked about was how I joined an association. It's called the Federal Law Enforcement Officers Association. Basically what happens is somebody breaks into my house, I have to shoot them. I make one phone call, I have lawyers. The Federal Law Enforcement Association pays for it. He does it, he's out of luck because Murphy doesn't allow anybody to have insurance in the state in case that happens. It's just not fair. So that's why the Second Amendment sanctuary people are trying to help the people.
Excuse me.
Thank you.
I have one question,
Yes.
sir.
Mr. Leeds.
I don't mean this to be controversial,
Yeah.
but just for my knowledge, you said you just purchased another gun.
Yep.
And it seems to me that gun owners have multiple guns.
Uh-huh.
Why is not, I can see if you need to protect your family, you would buy a gun. Why is this need for so many guns?
Well, first and foremost, under the Federal Law Enforcement Officer Safety Act, current and retired law enforcement officers are allowed to carry.
I know
firearms in the
that,
state
yes.
Anywhere in the country. I have several
Why?
competitive shooting. So there's a thing called Free Gun Nation. It's a handgun, shotgun, and a rifle.
Mhm. And that AK thing,
Well, not an AK thing.
AK-15,
No such thing. But
AR-15,
there's an AR-15.
AK,
Right, and everyone thinks, oh my God, big scary
a
rifle.
big gun.
Because it's made to look like what they use in war.
Well, it
But it
is.
doesn't function like anything like
Okay,
they use in
but
war.
I'm sorry, just for my knowledge, why so many
So,
guns?
a three gun shooting competition. You go to the gun range,
where you shoot targets and then you transition. Rifle, dump it into a barrel. Somebody's there to make sure it's unloaded. Shotgun, dump that. Then you transition to a handgun. It's competition shooting.
So it's for
Recreation.
sport. It's not to protect your household. It's more for sport.
Well, that's why I have a handgun, for to protect my household.
Okay. So one to protect your handgun. Okay, thank you. I appreciate
I
that.
just want to add on to that. So there's different calibers, different round sizes. So for example, 9mm, 22, right? So for, like, say my daughter, I took her shooting once, right? I'm not going to give her a 9mm with a huge kickback for a weapon. I give her a 22. It's a little less, so she can get used to it. So that's
How
the
old is your
reason-
daughter?
What's that?
May I ask how old
She's
your
12 years
daughter?
old.
You gave her a gun at 12.
With my permission.
Okay.
I mean, standing next to her.
All right,
make
because
sure
it's
that she
just
knows.
informational.
That seems weird to you.
It does.
May I ask why?
I don't think a 12-year-old needs
I
to,
understand that it's
yeah.
scary.
I'm just trying to educate myself.
And
I don't mean to be
we're super
confrontational.
happy that you're asking questions.
Yes.
Because that's the whole thing, is that there is a massive majority.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I feel.
But that's the reason why I would have it, only so it's something I can start on, because it's something my daughter can hold.
Thank you, Mr. Giambro.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate your answer.
I started my daughter out with a 12 gauge.
I don't even know what that is.
Of course you did. Okay, is there anyone else wishing to speak? Mary, is there anyone on Zoom wishing to speak? No? Seeing none, we will close the public session. Do I have a motion to adjourn the work session?
Yes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, can we take a
Thank you.
break?
Thank you. We'll
Thank
take
you.
a 5-minute break.
This was stuff that was written in 2019. These are just a few of the, those that were coming in. There's just so many of them that you can't keep on. But the thing of, all the
Good evening. This is the regular session of Northfield City Council, February 2nd of 2021. This meeting was properly advertised in accordance with Public Law 1975, Chapter 231, in the Press of Atlantic City on January 9th of this year. Due to social distancing requirements related to COVID-19, there are limited seats for in-person attendance by members of the public this evening. For this reason, this meeting is also being presented simultaneously as a remote public meeting, live streamed using Zoom conferencing service, and in accordance with the governor's executive orders and the Open Public Meetings Act. Zoom meeting participants can dial in by telephone and listen to the proceedings, or they can access the meeting using a web browser and be able to view and listen. Instructions on how members of the public could reserve one of the limited seats, as well as how they can access Zoom, have been made available on the municipal website and were published in the Press of Atlantic City. The full text of the meeting notice has been posted at the entrance to the municipal building and includes Zoom instructions, information on where to find the meeting agenda and relevant documents, as well as instructions on how members of the public could submit comments in advance of tonight's meeting. For those participating via Zoom, all participants will be muted upon entry to the meeting. Web browser participants will not be able to share their screens or see the camera view of anyone other than the host, which is the city of Northfield. Zoom participants wishing to exercise their right to participate during the public comment portion of the meeting should wait until the specific announcement is made to open the public comment period. At this time, one by one, any telephone users will be asked to identify themselves and will be unmuted to permit commentary. For web browser participants, comments or questions may be submitted via the chat function, but will not be acknowledged outside of the designated public comment portion of the meeting. Chat users must also provide his or her name and address for the record in order to be heard. Any written comments submitted in advance would be read aloud and addressed during the public comment portion of the meeting, and there were no such comments this evening. May I have flag salute by Council President Pro Tem Deweese, please.
All right, salute.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Asked to remain standing to observe a moment of silence today. 2 FBI agents were killed in a line of duty in Miami. Thank you.
Roll call?
Yes, sir, just a moment, please.
Yes.
Here.
You can ask Shannon. My typing gets bad the later it gets.
We made you type a lot tonight.
Yes, there was a lot of typing.
Roll call, Mr. Deweese.
Here.
Mrs. Madden.
Here.
Mr. Notaro.
Here.
Mr. Perry.
Here.
Mr. Smith.
Here.
Mr. Utz.
Here.
Mr. Palestina.
Here.
And for the record, we have Mayor Chow as well as Chief of Police Paul Newman participating via Zoom. Mr. President.
Thank you. Approval of the minutes?
I'd like to make the necessary motion to dispense with the reading of the minutes of January 19th. They have been posted, distributed to the council, and are on file at the city clerk's office.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Mayor's report.
He's not here.
I will be reading the mayor's report on his behalf this evening. He has typed it into the Zoom chat. If you can just give me a moment, please. So he had a committee meeting today, and we'll have another tomorrow with the Atlantic County folks regarding the administrative courts. He has a meeting coming up with Atlantic County regarding the Tilton Road bus service. He received a letter from County Executive Levinson supporting the bonding for the improvements for the Atlantic County Institute of Technology. He was informed by Superintendent Britonis that they did not need crossing guard services for today because school was being conducted virtually. The Northfield Community School December report, they had 5 students and 3 staff members test positive for COVID-19 since the return from Thanksgiving. In addition, they've had 89 students and 29 staff members quarantine. They have seen an increase in the number of families that have opted to have their children receive virtual instruction. He has a meeting coming up with the Police Committee and Labor Council this Friday to review grievances. He received a letter from County Executive Levinson regarding the to have their law department and engineering department review the portion of private property that will cover our pump station.
That's in Millen's Zone, right?
Yes, and I believe that was it, and he thanks you all for your time.
Thank you. Engineers report.
Thank you, Council President. I prepared my report last week. I emailed it to Council and Mayor. Just like to discuss a few items on the ACUA issue with the flows. We received the water usage for the entire year for the city of Northfield. I would look at the usage to see if it correlates to the increase in the flow that they're treating. From first look at it, doesn't look like it's correlate to it, but I'll go through the numbers, and next meeting I'll bring back to council kind of a spreadsheet to show the relationship between the water flows and the sewage flow for the city of Northfield for last year. The second thing is the parking lot or ADA improvements in the back of the building. The contractor was supposed to start this week with the concrete, but due to the weather, we pushed that off, and it's not advisable to do any concrete work with the temperature under 40. So most probably next week he will start, because it seems like the weather is going to we're going to get a break with the weather, so we can do the foundations, and then the actual ramp and steps will come in and they will install them. So we're still on track to finish by the end of the month, but hopefully this would happen this month. For our road program, a residents on 501 Maple contacted our office. I think contacted few council members and the mayor. The issue is we are upgrading the road or paving the road from Maple from Jackson all the way to Spruce. There's a small portion between Chestnut and Spruce. It's kind of narrow. And the gentleman wants us to widen the road, but really there's no room. And if you widen that portion, then you're going to have a portion from Spruce to Walnut, then all the way to Dolphin. Also, it's narrow. So at one point, this road transitioned from a 30-foot road to about 22 feet road in that area. So the gentleman was wondering why we couldn't widen the road, but physically there's no room. There's a lot of trees. It costs a lot of money to widen the road an extra foot or two, which doesn't really bring it into compliance with any standards. So I don't know if that's going to be an issue. I'm not sure if he's on the public. He's going to discuss that tonight, but just want to bring that to your attention. I think we should pave it the way it is. And during construction, if we're able to straighten the road a little bit, maybe add an extra foot, we will do that. But we're not going to spend additional funds to widen a road in front of a resident just because they need it to. I mean, they have room to park their cars. There's no need to park on the street, so he can have a driveway and park his car in the driveway. It's the same residence. We have vacated the street, and he got a larger portion on his side yard. He's able to put a nice driveway and park his vehicles on his private property, not on the street. So that could come up tonight, so I'm not sure.
Okay,
And that's basically my report tonight.
thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, yes.
Well, the parking lot back there, we want to put an outlet back in the corner for the emergency management.
Yes.
I just don't want to lose track of that. How do you foresee us doing that once you, I guess, want to pave the parking lot, want to do it right, I guess when you take all the asphalt out, you mill it and then take it, put it in there?
No, it should be done beforehand. It should be done beforehand.
Right.
They're supposed to run a conduit and hopefully let it sit for at least 30 days. So when we pave, it doesn't settle.
Okay. So when do you plan on milling the parking lot?
Probably in March, the end of March, April, when the plants open. The plants are closed at this point. The asphalt plants are closed until mid-March. So if the weather cooperates, they will go back online mid-March and they will start producing material and they will start, paving their projects by then.
I can't see you building, putting a hole in for the electric and then waiting 30 days for the bill.
No, we're not gonna do that. It should be done
Before,
now.
you're
Yeah.
gonna do it and then just let it sit.
Yeah, within the next 2-3 weeks, it should be done. Then we'll let it sit. And when we pave, it's compacted properly and we won't have any settlement issues.
Our contract, higher power with Quinn.
Okay.
He's going to give us the price.
All right, because we've been talking about this for almost a couple months, so we just need to get this taken care of before we pave.
Public Works can actually do
The trench.
trench.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we just have a contract to lay in place and conduit and wire.
All right.
All right.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Yes.
Our meeting today, Ronnie, with the superintendent, Public Works, the Madison drainage is still a problem. After they redid the Mill Road, where we at with that?
Madison.
Yeah.
I'm
It
not,
wasn't flooding and now it's flooding again after they repaired the road.
on,
Blake's Gymnastics.
where's that?
Across from Blake's Gymnastics, definitely.
Yeah, I haven't talked to anybody about that. I thought that there was a flooding issue beforehand.
We resolved that prior to getting it into the inlets. Now it's bypassing the inlets and draining back in there again after they built the road.
Well, we need to contact the county. That's their
Right.
thing. So if I can get all the information, I will contact Mark Short's office and we'll get him to look into it.
I thought they addressed that, after they milled and paved the road and.
They create a high
There's
point.
also there's a basin, 2 inlets in the, down Madison.
Yep.
And I think that there's, like outfalls that are in stone beds. And I think they were clogged.
Those inlets don't have a positive discharge.
Right.
So when the water comes in, if you are inundated with the rain, the water sits there until it infiltrates.
And I thought they stuck down into stone beds behind the property.
Yeah, but that stone bed, it'll be overloaded, won't handle the amount of rain we get. So you have a low point that doesn't have any positive discharge. But what the
Water's coming off the road, off the county road into the municipal road.
But the county have tried to create kind of a high area, but like they hump the road by the intersection to keep the water on mill. but
I'm
we'll,
not sure, I'd have to look at it, but the way I understand it, it was working fine until they redesigned it.
well, what I will do is I will arrange for a meeting with the engineer's office and the public works, and maybe
I thought that was all resolved after they paved the road.
I haven't heard about that until this now just coming back up. So.
It's flooding again pretty bad.
All right, well, I'll arrange for the meetings and then we'll see what's going on with that. But at the end of the day, if the county's stormwater is running onto our property, that is on them to fix.
Right.
Is it all the way back into the cul-de-sac there or just,
The low point is about 80 feet from the street.
okay, so it's going all the way.
Yeah, then it floods the whole, the water runs up above the curb and with the neighbors. Yeah.
Didn't the county put inlets right in Madison?
I thought they took care of that. I haven't heard about this till like recently. I mean, we talked about this. Yeah, yeah.
That's the problem. Just like Roosevelt and Tilton. Like
Yeah.
very nice after they did the job.
Well, it was.
Worst design I've ever seen.
It wasn't designed. What they did is they left out when the contractor did the job. On the plan, it was left out that he needs to put a swale there. It was not shown on the plan. So when the contractor did the work, didn't realize like this is what I'm supposed to do. They follow the engineered plans, and that was the issue.
Well, perfect, really touched
Yeah, because they put that swale in, and then when the contractor paved it, took the swale away.
I don't know, but it's impacting the municipal street.
Yep.
How do you say concrete gutter?
What's that?
How do you say concrete gutter?
They can do concrete gutter, but they have
They
to.
didn't, they should have.
Yeah.
Just a quick question. I'm not sure if this is for you, Ron, or actually maybe for Public Works. I noticed on Bonnie Lee Drive, there's been some work done at that intersection of Bonnie Lee and English Lane. There's cones set up on the corner. I know that there was a drainage issue
There's
with the county.
Their inlets fell, collapsed, the public works fixed that.
Okay.
It's just that,
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
There's a sinkhole because of that, so they're fixing it.
Thank you.
That was done in-house by our people.
Terrific.
Any other questions? Okay, at this time, we'll open the public session. This meeting is now open to the public for anyone to speak on any subject. Please state your name and address for the record and observe 5-minute limit per speaker. Anyone on Zoom?
think so, but I'm gonna ask them again. I do not believe so, Mr. President.
Seeing no one else wishing to speak, the public session is now closed. Resolutions?
I'd like to make
Just a second. I have some reading to do.
Oh,
And can you also pull standalone on 47?
47, okay. So you'll do 47
I'm sorry,
separate?
The information that I got here is just too, I can't do it.
Okay, certainly. You got that, David? Okay, all matters listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine in nature and having been reviewed by council will be enacted by one motion. Any item may be removed from the consent agenda at the request of any council member, and if so removed, will be treated as a separate matter. All items requiring expenditure are supported by a certification of availability of funds. The executive session, am I going on to that? The executive session will be held at the end of the meeting, and we will come back into public session to make the comment for the record after the executive session has concluded. Any vote made on subjects discussed will be made in public. Resolutions.
I'd like to make the motion to vote by consent agenda for resolutions 37, 2021 through 46, 2021.
Second, I just do have a question. Is 47 also included? The
47
EMS?
separate.
That's separate,
That's-
okay.
that's the one,
Can I
Councilman?
second this one? Sorry.
Roll call.
All in favor of voting by consent agenda on resolutions 37 through 46 of 2021?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
I'd like to make the motion to vote, adopt. Oh, adopt, okay, and then we'll do 47. I'm sorry. I'd like to make the motion to adopt consent agenda for resolutions 37, 2021 through 46, 2021.
Second.
Okay. Roll call.
Mr. Deweese?
Yes.
Mrs. Madden?
Yes.
Mr. Notaro?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Rutz?
Yes.
Mr. Palestina?
Yes.
Motion carries for the adoption of the consent agenda.
Resolution 47.
I'd like to make a motion to vote for resolution 47, 2021. Adopt, I'm sorry. 47, 2021.
Second.
Roll call.
I have to read it. I
I'm
have to read it
sorry.
into the record first.
I'm sorry. Be read.
Ready?
Read, yes.
This is the City of Northfield, New Jersey Resolution 47, 2021. It's a resolution approving revised specifications and authorizing the City of Linwood to advertise for proposals for emergency medical services for the City of Linwood and the City of Northfield. Whereas pursuant to Resolution 43-2021, the Common Council of the City of Northfield did reject the sole proposal received by the City of Linwood as lead agent on January 5, 2021 for the provision of emergency medical services for the City of Linwood and the City of Northfield. And whereas the City of Linwood as lead agent has substantially revised the previously advertised specifications for emergency medical services for the City of Linwood and the City of Northfield for the ultimate benefit and good of the residents of the cities. And whereas the EMS Council Chairperson and Shared Services Council Chairperson for the City of Northfield have reviewed and recommended the revisions to the specifications, a full copy of which is attached as Exhibit A for the provision of emergency medical services for the cities, which are as follows. Several bullet points, amending dates for advertisement, receipts of bids, and contract term. Page 5B, failure to perform, language revised to remove specific damage amounts. Page 5 and 6, C, insurance, removed naming the cities as co-insured for workers' compensation and professional liability. Removed paragraph requiring deductibles or self-insured retentions be declared to the cities. Added language to the contractor to name the cities as additional insured for general liability and automobile liability. 4. Page 8K, indemnity, modified the language to include to the extent caused by the negligent acts or omissions of the contractor. Page 11A, overall program management, changed the time for meetings from monthly to quarterly. Page 11B, data collecting and reporting, amended the response time data to read as, quote, detailed data for each individual response and the percentage of calls that met response time target, close quote. Page 12B, data collection and reporting, removed item number 6 for the contractor to provide special reports requested by the cities. Page 17B, EMS resource availability, removed references to description of facilities. Payment of existing facilities will be to contractor at no cost. Cable and internet shall be the responsibility of the contractor if so desired. Page 18D, response time requirements, change response time requirement from 5 minutes, 59 seconds to 7 minutes, 30 seconds. Change the restrictions from open quote may never exceed 9 minutes and 59 seconds to open quote if exceeds 10 minutes, a special report shall be provided to the cities immediately. Paragraph 18E, personnel. Remove the requirement for EMT to be at the defibrillation level. Say that quickly. Remove the requirement for personnel to complete the emergency vehicle operations course. Remove provisions for field supervisor to be certified in the paramedic level, but added a requirement for the field supervisor to be provided 24/7 for the region and DMS command on call. Page 19G, standby coverage, amended the language to be less stringent without noticing requirements. Amended to read that the contractor shall provide appropriate resources for special events and sporting events and reasonable support for the demonstrative services to the various civil events. Amended the language for contractor to provide standby to the city's fire and police to provide its standard list of call types. Paragraph 19H, disaster response, amended the language for the city's OEMS to be responsible for disaster response command and requiring the contractor to follow all orders of same. Whereas the revised specification shall be on file and available for inspection in the office of the municipal clerk, Northfield, New Jersey. Now therefore be it resolved by the Common Council of the City of Northfield, Atlantic County, New Jersey, that the aforesaid revised specifications are hereby approved. Be it further approved by the Common Council for the City of Northfield, Atlantic County, New Jersey, that the City of Linwood shall advertise the proposals for the aforesaid in the February 8, 2021 issue of the Press of Atlantic City. Proposals to be received on Wednesday, March 3, 2021 at 11 a.m. prevailing time in the municipal clerk's office, Linwood, New Jersey. Be it further resolved that the Common Council of the City of Northfield reserves the right to reject all bids. I, Mary Canisi, Municipal Clerk of the City of Northfield, do hereby certify that the foregoing resolution was adopted at a regular meeting of the Common Council of the City of Northfield held the second day of February 2021.
Thank you. Any discussion, any questions, Councilman Perry?
The insurance requirements and adjustments, I just don't understand why they would be reduced the way they are in the language, that makes the modification, removal requirements for EMT defibrillation level, emergency vehicle operation course. These are all standard operating procedures in the past. There's just too many open-ended things in here that what are we going to get once it is approved? And I don't know. I don't have enough information on the insurance to really go ahead with it. All I have.
That's right. Anybody else have any other input or questions?
To Frank's point about page 18, removal requirement for EMT at the defibrillation level, does that mean that they don't have to be trained in how to use defibrillator?
It was my understanding with that level that doesn't exist anymore, that certification doesn't exist, and that's why it was removed. I would believe that EMTs are trained in saving someone from heart issues and being able to use the equipment at their disposal.
Just that with certification.
That's my understanding of it, yes.
Carry the defibrillator.
That's my, I mean,
That makes sense. With the rest of the insurance, we have an email into Jeff to review this, the insurance portion. We haven't heard back from it yet.
You're approving it tonight without that knowledge, so I just, in my years of being in this business, I can't vote on somebody else, know what it is. No, sorry.
Could we contingent upon Jeff's approval?
Well, it still has to, the RFP still has to come back from the potential vendors. So.
They don't need just move, Mr. President. I mean, I'm just giving my opinion on it.
Thank you. Okay.
Is there a way to contingent?
Yeah, I don't know that we can, considering, I mean.
What's the question?
Since we're depending on, because we have two towns.
Contingency Based on Jeff's approval of.
I mean, at this point, you're approving the spec. You're not approving a contract quite yet.
Right.
If GIF comes back tomorrow and says we don't approve of the changes to the insurance requirements, my advice to you at that point would be reject the bid unless they agree to provide the needed insurance.
With spec for the bid.
And if they, and I guess they could come back with adequate insurance above the RFP anyway.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the insurance, they take out, it's on page 6. They removed the requirement to name the cities as co-insured on all of those 5 items under C, but then they put it back in for items 2 and 3. So that's exactly why I emailed the risk management consultant to see if the cities not named as additional insured on items 1, 4, and 5 really matter. So we'll get that advice, and if it's contrary to what you want to approve once the bid comes in, you reject the bid. I think that's the only thing you can really do at this point.
Well, even the failure to perform has been almost got it, that there's no legal stance there for us to recoup any type of compensation. I don't know, at the last minute, there's so many open-ended things. I'm not nitpicking it, but I give that a
Okay,
hard time.
Frank. Keep doing it.
Brian and I worked very hard on this and it was put on our, it was the last minute. I mean, it should have been done, months ago, of course, but, stuff happened.
Well, yeah, I mean, since we had to reject the prior one, we're under a time constraint at this point.
Yeah, we're in time constraint.
Yeah, I would have
We
been,
do have the 90 days, so we don't have to rush.
I would have been more in favor to do a year's extension with the cost myself at this point, as is. So we move, so just move it, Mr. President.
Okay. At that, oh no, we've already got first and second. Roll call? Yes.
All right, roll call. Mr. Deweese?
Yeah.
Mrs. Madden?
Yes.
Mr. Notaro?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
No.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Utz?
Yes.
Mr. Palestina?
Yes.
Motion carries for the adoption of Resolution 47 of 2021.
Ordinances?
Make the necessary motion for the introduction of ordinance 1/2021.
Second.
Ordinance 1 of 2021 is going to be read by title only. This is an ordinance to exceed the municipal budget appropriation limits and to establish a cap bank pursuant to NJSA 40A:4-4514. This is the introduction. There will be no public input, and the ordinance will be published in the Press of Atlantic City on February 6th. There will be a second reading, after which there will be a public hearing, and it will be taken up for final consideration on February 16th of 2021. Oh, sorry. The ordinance is presently posted in full on the municipal website as well as in the display case here at City Hall. Any member of the public who requests a copy of the ordinance will be provided with one free of charge in my office simply by asking for it.
Are there any questions? Roll call?
Mr. Deweese?
Yes.
Mrs. Madden?
Yes.
Mr. Notaro?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Utz?
Yes.
Mr. Palestina?
Yes.
Motion carries for the introduction of ordinance 1 of 2021.
We have a motion for introducing ordinance 2-2021.
Make the necessary motion to introduction of 2-2021.
See, I made you catch it.
Second.
Ordinance 2 of 2021 also will be read by title only. This is an ordinance providing for and establishing salary ranges of officers and employees of the city of Northfield and repealing all ordinances heretofore adopted, the provisions of which are inconsistent herewith. This is the introduction. There will be no public input. The ordinance will be published in the Press of Atlantic City on February 6th. And it is also presently posted in full on the municipal website, as well as the display case here in the lobby of City Hall. And any member of the public who asks for a copy will be provided with one free of charge. There will be a second reading public hearing, after which the matter will be considered for final adoption on February 16th.
Are there any questions? Roll call.
Mr. Deweese.
Yes.
Mrs. Madden.
Yes.
Mr. Notaro.
Yes.
Mr. Perry.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Rutz.
Yes.
Mr. Palestina.
Yes.
Motion carries for the introduction of ordinance 2 of 2021.
Payment of bills?
I should make a motion for payment of bills of $2,021,661.81.
Second.
Do a roll call, maybe? Roll call. Any questions? Roll call?
Mr. Deweese.
Yes.
Mrs. Madden.
Yes.
Mr. Notaro.
Yes.
Mr. Perry.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Rutz.
Yes.
Mr. Palestina.
Yes.
Motion carries for payment of bills.
Meeting notices?
We'll have a budget meeting this Thursday, February 4th at 3 p.m. in council chambers. The next council meeting will be February 16th with a 6 p.m. work session, the regular session to follow immediately thereafter.
Executive session, resolution 45, 2021.
Resolution 45 of 2021 was adopted earlier this evening as part of the consent agenda. This is a resolution providing for an executive session not open to the public in accordance with the provisions of the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act. In this case, NJSA 10:4-12B7 regarding litigation and matters falling within the attorney-client privilege regarding confidentiality. We are required to set forth as much information as possible for the public as to the subject matter to be discussed, as well as provide for them the amount of time they can expect to elapse before the non-public minutes can be disclosed. And for that, I will defer to the solicitor. However, briefly for those in Zoom, when the executive session does commence, I will be turning off the audio and the video will be temporarily paused. So you'll just see the city logo, but the council will resume public session as soon as the executive session does conclude.
Thank you. At this time, the council for the city of Northfield will enter into an executive session not open to the general public in accordance with the provisions of the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act. Matter to be discussed relates to litigation and matters falling within the attorney-client privilege, which require confidentiality. Specifically, the conversation will center upon certain Mount Laurel litigation, sewer availability and capacity issues, sewer study issues, for the property commonly known as the Mason property. Council will keep minutes of the executive session as required by law, which will be approved by the council and made promptly available for public inspection when required and permitted by law. At this time, the time for the release of those minutes is unknown. It will be when the matter is fully resolved. We will return to the general public when this executive session is complete for a short statement.
Also for the record, Mayor Chow, currently in Zoom, will be joining us in the room for the executive session. Mr. Facenda?
Yes, the council for the city of Northfield has concluded its executive session authorized under Resolution 45, 2021, not open to the public, to discuss matters of potential litigation and matters falling within the attorney-client privilege requiring confidentiality. Specific matters discussed were continued Mount Laurel litigation, sewer capacity issues, sewer availability issues at a property known as Mason Properties. Council kept minutes of the executive session as required by law. They will be made available for public inspection when required. At this time, the timeframe is unknown.
Which one, where am I now? To return to public.
46.
Okay. Resolution 46, 2021.
All right. Nope, we're good. It's on me. Resolution 46 of 2021 was adopted earlier this evening as part of the consent agenda. This is a resolution providing for an executive session not open to the public in accordance with the provisions of the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10:4-12B7, regarding contract negotiations. We are required to set forth as much information as possible about the subject matter to be discussed, as well as provide for the public the amount of time they can expect to elapse before the non-public minutes can be disclosed. And for that, I will defer to the solicitor. For those of you participating via Zoom, when the executive session does commence, the audio and video to the Zoom meeting will be paused, and you will see the City of Northfield logo displayed on your screen. When the executive session does conclude, the Zoom recording will resume, and a statement will be made by the solicitor on the record for the public. Mr. Facenda.
At this time, council will, for the City of Northfield will enter its second second executive session not open to the general public in accordance with the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act. Matters to be discussed are contractual negotiations, more specifically shared services and shared court services, and negotiations concerning same for a potential shared court with the Township of Hamilton. Council will keep minutes of the executive session as required by law, which will be approved by council and made available for public inspection when required and permitted by law. The time for that at this juncture is unknown. That's all I got.
And Mr. Facenda, we are back.
Thank you.
Ruining my average.
Council for the City of Northfield has concluded its second executive session not open to the general public in accordance with the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act. Matters discussed were shared courts, specifically a shared court with the Township of Hamilton, and the terms and conditions of Township of Hamilton's proposal for a court. We kept minutes of the executive session as required by law, which will be approved and made available for public inspection when required and permitted by law. At this juncture, that time frame is unknown. No official action was taken this evening.
I'm good.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah. Blew my average short meeting time.
That's good.
This was a listen duration.
This was like